Hello, everyone. It's your boy, Spool Boy, and it's week 4 of the GWA. This week, my opponent is Dries, coach of the Navy Spheals. I was really looking forward to this match just because in the LCL, I didn't get the opportunity to play against him, and he played very, very well in the LCL, so I was looking forward to playing against him in this league. I kind of came in with the idea that Dipplin would be my dedicated answer to the Walking Wake. My Dipplin is a Terra Captain, and it is Terra Fairy, and this is the only week that it gets used before I drop it, just because I make a couple more shifts on my team because of a Mon that was dropped in this week. Dragonite ended up getting dropped, so I did make a couple shifts to be able to pick up Dragonite. So unfortunately, this is only a week that Dipplin gets shown, but I think it has a decent showing in its 1 week. So going into this, I know that he really likes Clodsire, and he really likes to Toxic with Clodsire. So I did bring a Lumberry on my Slowbro to actually deal with that Toxic. And I can't remember what. I think I have Psyshock on it to hit it where it's weaker on the defensive side rather than the special defensive side. So I'm just going to lead off with Slowbro here just because it does well into a lot of his team. It doesn't mind a lot of the Mons. And he does lead with the Clodsire here, which is actually the perfect lead. This is what I was exactly hoping for. So if he starts off here to either get off rocks or a Toxic, I can just click Psyshock and get a large chunk of the HP off of this Clodsire here. So, and then really worst case scenario is that he swaps out. Best case scenario, he stays in and tries to get a Toxic off on me. So we do go for the Psyshock. He does stay in, and we do about a little over 50%. I want to say it's probably 55, and he does go for the Toxic, which is perfect. I'm in a really great position here because Slowbro is now just going to eat this Lumberry, and that's going to protect me from bonus damage off of knockoff since I have no item. And even after the Black Sludge health recovery, he's still in range to get knocked out by Psyshock. But I don't expect him to allow his Clodsire to go down here, so I am expecting a swap, and I do believe the swap is going to go straight into Scizor, so I am going to go for the Flamethrower. I did bring Flamethrower on Slowbro just to cover for a swap in to the Scizor, and that's exactly what he goes out to here. So we do get the Flamethrower off, and we're just going to get the one-hit knockout here on the Scizor. So far, these first 2 turns have gone heavily in my favor. Very lucky that I predicted the Scizor swap and got the Flamethrower off on it. Otherwise, I would have been forced to swap because any Bug-type move from Scizor would have knocked me out. And I know Clodsire gets Recover, and he could have recovered with his Clodsire there, but honestly, I would have been fine with him clicking Recover while I click Flamethrower because it would have gotten damage off on him, and then I could have turned around and just clicked Psyshock again and kind of put him in another bad position. So he's going to go straight out to his Espeon here. This is his Terra Captain that he brought, and I believe the Terras on it are Psychic, Electric, and Fairy, if I remember correctly. So I am kind of expecting a Terra Electric here, but I'm not really 100% sure on what it... Or I'm sorry, a Terra Fairy, not Terra Electric. I was expecting Terra Electric, and I do go for the Thunder Wave, not even thinking about the Magic Bounce, just bouncing it back to me. And he does sub, so no matter what, I wasn't getting it, but thankfully I missed my own Thunder Wave on myself. So I've never been more happy to miss a Thunder Wave. And he does go for the Calm Mind setup here. I'm assuming that it's probably a stored power set, because normally when you see Calm Mind, it usually equals a stored power set, but luckily I do have Earthquake, which is going to deal enough damage to get rid of the sub, and I don't have to worry about clicking anything else like a resisted Psyshock or Flamethrower, to where it's going to continue to be able to hide behind the sub and get more Calm Minds up and take less damage from my special moves. So here I do just decide to go for the Earthquake again rather than swapping out, just because I know Earthquake's going to do enough to take out the sub, and he's either going to have to choose to take the Earthquake damage to try and set up more, or take the 25% damage from clicking Substitute again, which I'm just going to get rid of immediately with the Earthquake. And I actually had Earthquake as another answer to Clodsire. A lot of my Slowbro set is to kind of deal with the Clodsire, depending on what the set on it was. But I figured it would be especially defensive, so I did kind of last second switch from Psychic to Psyshock, which kind of defeated the purpose of Earthquake. But in this situation here, it actually worked out in my favor to have the Earthquake. He does go for the Draining Kiss, which heals enough to where my Earthquake kind of takes it back to where it was before the Draining Kiss went off. So I don't really want to stay in here because I'm taking a decent amount of damage. And if Draining Kiss does go off again, I am safe to go out into my Cinderace here. And I will be able to threaten it with a Pyro Ball, or get off some chip damage with a U-turn to swap out to something else. I kind of figured it was my best bet. I didn't want to swap in Toxtricity and potentially take like a Psychic move, whether it be Psychic itself or even Psyshock, because it does get both of those, or even Stored Power, because I think Stored Power from one Calm Mind probably would have knocked out my Toxtricity. So I do just go out to my Cinderace here because I know it'll outspeed and I know it'll do a lot of damage with a Power Ball. And he does end up swapping out into the Galarian Weezing with the neutralizing gas. So any Libero or any abilities in general are just going to get nullified here. So luckily I do hit the Power Ball. It does a decent amount of damage. I don't really know. I'm trying to think of what this Galarian Weezing could do to my team. I guess the worst it could do is maybe like a Destiny Bond type of deal, or get off Toxics. But I wasn't really expecting Toxic on the Weezing just because the Clodsire is carrying Toxic. So I do just go for the U-turn here to swap out, and I'm kind of just trying to think of what is going to best take either a Fairy or a Poison move, and I think my answer is yeah. So I got to Baneful Fox here, which is my Hisuian Zoroark, and I was incredibly confused when I swapped out to this and it wasn't disguised, completely forgetting that the neutralizing gas was nullifying all the abilities. So we just go out. It does taunt us, and I am just going to go with the Psychic here. Psychic's going to do a decent amount of damage to anything that wants to come out, because I don't believe he's running a Dark type on his team this week. And it will knock out Weezing if he doesn't swap the Weezing out here. So he's kind of in a tough position here. He's going to take a lot of damage from my Zoroark, depending on whatever comes in. And I think, yeah, so the taunt didn't matter. I was trying to think if I ran Trick on Zoroark this week, and I did not. I had 4 attacking moves, so the taunt really doesn't make much of a difference. And I do believe I had Flamethrower, Taunt, Shadow Ball, and Hyper Voice. Flamethrower, once again, just to cover for that Scizor, just in case I got a got Zoroark in against Scizor while it's still disguised and was able to get the flamethrower off on it by surprise. But he does decide to stay in with the Weezing and does take I do take the knockout with Zoroark. And his response, he does go out to his Walking Wake. Now, this is the Mon that I was most worried about. I do have Dipplin in the back as an answer, but my Dipplin needs to Terra into the Fairy type before it completely walls this Walking Wake. Otherwise, if I take a Dragon Pulse on a switch or something like that, or a Draco Meteor, it's either going to do a ton of damage, or if it's Draco Meteor, I think Draco Meteor would just completely knock out my Dipplin, depending on the set of this Walking Wake. So I do just decide to play it a little bit safer. Instead of going straight out into my Dipplin, I do decide to go out into Slowbro to maybe scout what the set might be or what he's running. And he is running Dragon Pulse, so I do know that Dipplin is not the move here, because if I'm going to take a Dragon Pulse, I can't afford to take it on Dipplin, because this Walking Wake kind of goes a little crazy when Dipplin's off the board. So I do stay in. I go for the Thunder Wave and miss again. First time I miss myself. Second time I miss Wake. And I don't want to get rid of Slowbro yet, just because I do kind of need it for the Clodsire. It's one of my best answers to the Clodsire. And I kind of just need to look for something that's a little more expendable on my team. At this point, I do believe what I find to be most expendable is the Toxtricity, which I later find really isn't that expendable, considering that there is a Terra Fairy, what is that Pokemon? Terra Fairy Espeon, which I actually would have really liked to have Sludge Bomb for. So I do believe I just go out to my Toxtricity here and kind of let it go down to this Walking Wake. So Toxtricity does come out here. It is going to take a Dragon Pulse from the Walking Wake, and it lives on 2 HP. So I kind of decide just to go for broke here and just go for a damaging move. I think Boom Burst is going to do the most, and it does about half. And because of the Dragon typing on the Walking Wake, the electric moves aren't super effective. They are just neutral, and I don't think with Stab, Overdrive would have done more damage. Because if it's 1.5, then it's 120. Yeah, Boom Burst is still more at 140 plus Punk Rock boost. So Boom Burst was my best move there. And this does give me the switch straight out into my Dipplin. And with Dipplin, I'm just going to immediately Terra Fairy, go for the Terra Blast, because if he doesn't swap or... Yeah, so if he stays in here, the Terra Fairy Terra Blast is going to knock out the Walking Wake, and the Walking Wake really doesn't have any kind of way to deal a good amount of damage. Both Hydro, Steam, and Flamethrower don't do anything to my Dipplin with the Eviolite and max special defense. And I have Sticky Hold, so it can't be knocked off. So this Eviolite's here to stay for the whole game. I do go for the Terra. He does swap out, which is a great move because there wasn't really much it could do to my Dipplin. But now I have my Dipplin in the position to where when Walking Wake hits the field, Dipplin is safe to just swap in. Any damage that his Walking Wake could do to my Dipplin, I can later heal off with Recover, so swapping it in is really not that big of a deal. And I am expecting probably like a Toxic or Earthquake coming out of this Clodsire here, so I do just go out to my Gligar. And my Gligar being a flying type, is immune to any earthquake, and also having the ability immunity is immune to being poisoned. So Gligar kind of does pretty well against the Clodsire, and he does go for the recover, probably predicting that I would swap out into Gligar, or just, not being worried about whatever my Dipplin's going to throw out, knowing that Clodsire is going to eat it just fine and then be able to heal it all up. So I do just go for knockoff. I want to get the item off this thing. The less healing that this Pokemon has, the more manageable it'll be later on in the game. Because I do want my damage to stick on it. And Recover's only got 8 PP. He's used 1, so it's down to 7. And I do believe I will be able to kind of stall out his recovers with my remaining Pokemon. And he does decide to swap out here into the Walking Wake, and we are going to knock off the item, which I guess there wasn't one, or maybe it was used up earlier. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember if I had gotten rid of an item earlier. But with Walking Wake coming in, like I was saying earlier, it's just a free switch right out into my Dipplin. No matter what it wants to go for, my Dipplin is just gonna be able to take it. It does go for the Surf, and Dipplin takes that just fine. Honestly, I go for Giga Drain here, thinking, okay, he's probably going to swap out into Clodsire. I can at least get a little bit of HP back on my Dipplin on the Clodsire switch, but he does actually swap out into Espeon, and this is kind of a problem because I don't want to let Espeon get the free setup on my Dipplin. So I've got to make a swap here. And I've got to kind of predict what he's going to go for. I think the most obvious move would be to go for a substitute here. Just because Dipplin is not going to be able to do enough damage to break the sub in one attack with either Terra Blast or Giga Drain. And assuming that my last move is a Dragon move, or my last 2 moves are probably a supportive move and a Dragon move, I think substitute's a pretty safe bet that that's what's going to come out. I just need to make sure that I swap into something that is going to be able to deal with the Espeon behind a sub. So I do just decide to go out into my Cinderace here. I came to the conclusion that my Slowbro was a little bit too low on HP to be able to deal with this. And he does just go for the Rock Calm Mind. So I'm in a position here again where I've got the faster Mon on the field, and a Pyro Ball will more than likely knock out the Espeon. So I'm just going to go for the Pyro Ball and hope that it hits. If he wants to swap out here, that's also okay with me, because my Cinderace is the fastest Pokemon on both teams, so a U-turn is going to be the play that I'll go for if anything swaps where I don't like the matchup. So if Clodsire were to come out, I just U-turn on Clodsire. If Walking Wake comes out, I U-turn on Walking Wake. What's the other Mon? Honestly, if the Sterile Edge comes out, I probably just go for Sucker Punch, because I think Sucker Punch is enough to knock it out, unless it's running a little bit of bulk on it. As long as he's not using a setup move, I would be fine in that scenario. But he does opt to swap out here, probably knowing that a Pyro Ball would be enough to knock him out. So he does go out into the Walking Wake, and with my Dipplin in the back, I know Dipplin is a safe bet just to swap out to, but I think I do heavily consider just going for the Sucker Punch here and getting the knockout with my Cinderace on this Walking Wake just to get rid of it. But I do end up going with the U-turn just because it is the safer play, because if for some reason he has a setup move or Sucker Punch doesn't knock it out, I don't risk losing my Cinderace in this scenario. So the U-turn is enough to take out that Walking Wake. And now I just go right out into Slowbro. My thinking here is we go out to Slowbro. He probably goes out into Espeon or Ceruledge. Maybe. I kind of just want to bring Slowbro in to immediately swap Slowbro out to get more HP back on it with the Regenerator ability. Yep, he does go right out to the Claude, and I do still have my Gligar alive, so I think Gligar is a pretty safe swap into the Clodsire. He could go for getting up the Stealth Rocks or Toxic Spikes or whatever he might have. He could go for getting that up on my side of the field. But he does actually just double swap, and I do decide to stay in and go for the Psyshock. Just to get as much damage off on that as I can. But with the swap, does go out to Espeon, and Espeon does take quite a bit from that. And here I am heavily debating on swapping out. I am not too sure what the second move or what the last move on that Espeon is. I know it's Draining Kiss. I know it's Substitute and Calm Mind. I take a Psychic for sure. But if it is a Psyshock, I am less invested on the defensive side. So a Psyshock is going to be enough to knock out my Slowbro. He does go for the Drain Kiss, which gives him enough HP to live from the Earthquake, which is unfortunate because if I had gone for Psyshock, I do think that would have been enough damage to take out the Espeon there. So that was kind of a misplay on my part going for the Psyshock. I might have gone for it either going for the Earthquake over the Psyshock. I might have gone for it there reading that he might go out to Ceruledge and catch the Ceruledge with a Earthquake. But all things considered, that's kind of an over... What is that I'm trying to say? That's an over prediction on my part. I don't really need to make that kind of play because I have so many options in the back that can deal with the Ceruledge. I should just go for trying to get the knockout on this Espeon. So I am pushed into a position where I kind of need to switch out my Slowbro here just because I don't want to lose it. I am expecting a Draining Kiss, so I do go out to the Cinderace. And that's exactly what he goes for. He goes for the Draining Kiss. And luckily, Cinderace, being a fire type, does resist that. So now I'm back in the position again where I'm just going to go for the Pyro Ball. I don't think Sucker is enough to knock out. Oh, I'd actually end up going for U-turn. Kind of expecting a swap here just because he's hard swapped the Espeon every time. And I know Sucker Punch isn't going to be enough to knock out. So the safe play is just to... Honestly, the safest play is to go for a knockout and click Pyro Ball. But I do want to keep up momentum if he does choose to swap out here, which he does end up doing. So U-turn ends up being a pretty decent play. Does go out to the Ceruledge, which... if it's running Flash Fire, the Pyro Ball would have just powered up a fire move. And yeah, so not seeing any weak armor there after taking a hit. We know it is Flash Fire, so U-turn was actually the correct play there. And I do decide to go out to my my Zoroark here. By looking at the HP, you can tell that this isn't actually my Slowbro. It is Zoroark, so yeah. Assuming that he expects that, I do just go for Shadow Ball in case he does stay in, but does expect it. So Clodsire comes out and is going to take the Shadow Ball. Had I predicted Clodsire to come out, I could have gone for Psychic and actually just gotten either the KO on Clodsire, the KO on Espeon, or I could have gotten a decent amount of damage on the Ceruledge, because the only thing the Ceruledge would have been able to hit me with is a fire type move, considering that Hisuian Zoroark is both normal and ghost. I do resist the ghost type, and I don't think Ceruledge gets knockoff, but I do believe it gets like Night Slash, so it could be running that in order to try and deal with a Zoroark. But I do decide just to go out to Gligar. I think Gligar is my best option into the Clodsire right now, even with it being able to recover on my Gligar. I do decide to go out to it. I do want to get my rocks up just because he is doing a lot of swapping, and at this point, to stay in it, I do believe he has to keep swapping a lot. And with Espeon so low on HP and the Ceruledge being weak to rocks, it's really going to limit the amount of times he can swap in and out. The only thing that's kind of safe to swap in and out is the Clodsire. So getting up my rocks here is just kind of a safe play. So I do go for the rocks, get them up, and had the Espeon come in, I could have court changed the rocks from my side of the field to the other side of the field. Just because of the magic bounce. He does show that he has bulk up. I do go for the knockoff, in which I believe he's Colbur Berry. So knockoff really doesn't do anything. The best play is honestly just going for the Earthquake. I wasn't really expecting Colbur Berry. I was expecting probably something to deal a little bit more damage, maybe like a Life Orb. I wasn't really expecting it to be like Choice Band or Choice Scarf. So he does get the one bulk up, goes for the Bitter Blade, and it does do a decent amount of damage to me, and it is going to heal off pretty much everything that it's taken from that knockoff. But we are going to go for the Earthquake here, and I do believe the Earthquake is enough to be a 2-hit knockout unless he bulks up again. But with the Bitter Blade healing, it is going to be at enough HP to live one more Earthquake. So we are going to have to take an extra turn to click Earthquake one more time just to get it to knock out. He does go for the Poltergeist, making my own item attack me. And we live on 2 HP. Luckily, my Gligar this week is fully physically defensive, so we are able to live that with just a little bit of HP. Honestly, I don't know if that was a high roll or a low roll, but either way, it was probably going to knock me out. So here, I do think about swapping it. I'm swapping out Gligar here because I'm being greedy and playing for differential, just trying to get as high of a differential as I can to help me in the standings later on in the season. So I do go out to Cinderace here, expecting another Draining Kiss, but he does predict it and goes for the Psyshock and does reveal that last item, or that last move, and we do get a disconnect here. And after talking it over with my opponent, we do just decide to call it there. We didn't see it being worth remaking the whole game and trying to get back into that position again, because my opponent did believe that he was in a position where he wasn't going to be able to win. And after talking it over with sets and all that kind of stuff, kind of what we brought versus what he brought, we did come to the conclusion that there wasn't really a way for him to come back and win that one. So we do end it there, and we do attribute the Gligar knockout to Espeon, and we give the last 2 knockouts, I believe, to Hisuian Zoroark. So that's how that one does end up ending. So we do win, I believe, I want to say 3-0. I'm not. It's either 3-0, 2-0. I'm not 100% sure, but it was a great game. I really did just get a huge advantage in the very beginning with those first 2 turns, kind of going in my favor, playing out the way that I was hoping that they would. So, yeah, good game to my opponent, and I hope to see y'all next week for Week 5. Thanks for watching.